Welcome to POSTCAST tonight as the Jazz win in Minnesota despite being shorthanded. They beat the Wolves pretty handily, 101-89. And, Ron, if there's one story to this season, it's been Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert has changed who he is. We saw a glimpse of it in the Summer League. We saw a glimpse of it when he dominated Spain and led France to the #1 upset of the World Cup this year. And he dominated tonight's game and is beginning to dominate more games on more than often.
We've saw glimpses, but were we believers then? Are we believers now? And I think that is the question, because we're seeing him improve every game. We're seeing him become a player that has a way of impacting the basketball game, and that is very nice to see.
I'm a little cautious to overstep too much because Minnesota's awful. But it's an NBA team. It's still an NBA win. We're not good enough that we should be taking, when we go get smoked by the Clippers, I don't see anybody saying that didn't happen recently, but let's go smoked by Dallas. I don't hear anybody saying, well, don't really worry about it. They're just so darn good.
Right.
So I don't know if we should take the other way. But the final numbers tonight, when Rudy Gobert is on the floor, Minnesota shoots 20 of 58 from the floor for about 33 or 4%. When he's off the floor, they shoot 50%, 14 of 28. Now, that's a little because without Ennis, then that's sometimes was Booker and Evans, who were both very good, but I don't care. Like, that's incredible. And I go back to a quote a GM gave me once. You look for guys who can make dominating plays. That tells you that they have an elite skill that can get in the NBA. Yeah. Then you want them to see if you can get someone who can dominate a sequence. Then can they dominate a quarter? Then eventually one day they dominate a game. And hopefully at some point they dominate a week. And that's kind of where his view of progression of players. And you had to look at someone. And you think about Darren Williams' progression, right? We saw him dominate. Then eventually Darren Williams dominated weeks and became an all-star. Rudy Gobert may have had a game tonight. He definitely had the third quarter. Like, he dominated the third quarter, and he is now, with some regularity, dominating quarters.
And if I could add to that for a minute, is what does that do to this basketball team? It's going to keep Coach Snyder up at night trying to make sure that Rudy is in the basketball game at certain times of the basketball game, and a part of a rotation that's going to make this team special. I mean, that's his next task, is to make sure that Rudy not only has a chance to grow with out there on the floor, but then has a way to impact this basketball game, because he's still going to come off the bench for the most part when Cantor is healthy. I don't look for them to start, because, and as you mentioned so often, how tough it is for the Jazz to score. Now, they're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is a professional basketball team. You still have to win against a professional basketball team, whether it's the Minnesota Timberwolves. But if there was a measuring stick of the success that the Jazz have had and the growth of this team, then you got to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if there's a measuring stick for a person like Rudy, we've seen that from game to game and how he's gotten better, and we're raving about it.
If there's somebody I would have a lot of faith in figuring out offensively how to make people score, it's Quinn Snyder. I mean, he's really bright.
He'll be up, and right? The reason for that is
he sees.
I don't
really
know
well.
if he sleeps.
I'm not sure he does. I don't want. I mean, Rudy was incredible, and Rudy's the story of the night. But I don't want it to overshadow Trevor tonight, because Trevor Booker, 6 assists, his career high. He had 14 rebounds tonight, 15 rebounds tonight at 8 points. But the rebounds we had to have without Ennis and playing with Jeremy, who also was very good for a period of time. It was really, really important. I mean, a little of this, again, is you're playing Minnesota. And so Jeremy Evans comes off the bench, and he's probably playing a guy that he's better than, which he doesn't get to do very often. And Trevor Booker's better than the guys that were out there, and they showed it. And you got to on a back end of a back-to-back, when we were better than their guys, and they all did it. Now, before we go any further in this broadcast, we got to get to the other storyline, because the other storyline to me is one of the most impressive things I've seen, and that is Trey Burke. And professional athletes are just special people.
Yes.
You don't get to this league being anywhere near normal. How you bounce back from the shooting night he had last night to the night he had tonight is just remarkable to me.
And I'm going to go back to Levine's comments, who plays for Minnesota, is that you got to forget about the night before, the bad night you had, and just go out and play basketball the next night. And you really got to, give kudos there to Trey, because that had to be, he probably didn't sleep at all last night, thinking about those shots that he just continued to miss, knowing that those are shots that he usually makes, that he's often that he makes, but he came back and knocked down those shots. Now, there's a way to do it, though. There's a way to get yourself involved. I mean, if you have to, in transition, going all the way to the basket, put the ball on the floor and getting to that spot that you got more confidence than anything. And I think that's that elbow jumper there from 15 feet away that can get you going. And then he has a thing for Minnesota for some reason.
Yeah, he's torched Minnesota. Let's go to some of the questions. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel's question is, I'll be interested to hear what opposing coaches say about Rudy as the rest of the league is high on him as we are. Well, you actually were in on the Flip Saunders conversation before the game. He was talking about Rudy. What did he have to say?
Well, he just talked about he says the guy is so long, he's so tall. He said his wingspan is 7 foot. 9. But he's very impressed with him, and as he has with a lot of the young players.
I mean, people are taking notice. I mean, it's been written about a little bit. It's becoming a storyline. He's there's enough people in the stats community now. He's the #1 stats view rim protector in the NBA going into tonight's game for the first time. He'll be even better when the numbers come out tomorrow. People notice those kind of things.
And it's not just the block shots.
No, right.
It's the ones that he changes there as well. And not, sometimes, David, he might not even have to go after a shot, but the guy, the offensive player knows that it's Rudy, so he's going to alter his shot even before he takes it. And that's affecting his as well.
You know what? I've covered some bad defensive teams with some of the Jazz teams and some of the Sonics teams, and I actually felt like part of those teams' problems were that in the scouting report in the morning, the coaches said they have no rim protection, just go to the rim.
Yeah.
And so everybody started the night going to the rim. The exact opposite is now going to happen with the Jazz.
Yes.
Hey, beware of Rudy Gobert in the middle. That eliminates part of your defensive problem before the night even starts.
Even if he doesn't start, when Rudy comes in the ball game, our offensive game changes. I mean, this is what we want to do. We don't want to continue to challenge him. We want to, whatever the case. But whenever he's in the basketball game, you're in other words, David, he's a part of the scouting report, and which makes a big difference.
And as part of the scouting report, that is in a good way. Jazz have won 6 of 9, by the way. Let's go to Andy in Wellington, Florida. Feeling good for Trey tonight. I like the big lineup with Ingles. It causes a matchup problem for teams to guard Hayward when he gets healthy. Do you think Hood will be coming off the bench in favor of this lineup? I don't know. I mean, Rodney Hood has not earned a starting spot in any way, shape, or form, so it's not like Enes Kanter gets his starting spot when he gets healthy. So yeah, if Joe Ingles plays well, it turns out he's a facilitator and it works, and maybe it's a better idea to have a younger Rodney Hood play second tier guys off the bench, then yeah, absolutely. Maybe there's a chance. But I don't know.
That's iffy because you are trying to build a very young basketball team. You're trying to build a starting five. You're trying to create something very, very special. San Antonio created something special down there, and they had a special player in Tim Duncan, and then they end up developing 3 players that played forever together and very, very good. Can the Jazz do that with these young players? Joe Ingles is not going to be 3 or 4 years on this team in 3 or 4 years as the future of this basketball team.
No, but Rodney Hood is shooting 31% right now. It may be and I went through the numbers. Guys drafted 22nd or 24th in drafts don't start as rookies.
No,
they just don't. There's only been 3 of them.
Second round pick for the most part.
Yeah, I mean they've only been 3 guys who've started in 10 through 30 over 40 games in NBA season. It might be better for Rodney's development to play second team minutes. And also Joe's a tough, what?
Oh, absolutely.
So maybe it's good to have Joe bang a few guys here early in the game. I didn't touch him. He'd kill me. Trust me, I didn't do it. All right, finally to Adam. How impressed are you that the Jazz were able to run away from the Wolves when they couldn't before? I thought tonight was impressive. You're shorthanded on the worst back-to-back in the NBA, and the energy was really consistent throughout the whole night. There was never a moment – the game lulled because neither team was very good early. But I never felt as though there was the moment where 50-50 balls were going the wrong way and you had to pick up the energy or anything like that. So, yeah, in that sense, I was very impressed.
but you have to have some help there, and obviously we were impressed that they were able to hold them off when the Wolves made a run here at home. Sometimes that goes the other way, and it was a good thing that Trey Burke continued to have a good night, and they had the respect of Rudy. I mean, Gordon was just out there tonight. I mean, he's the guy that you rely on, but it was someone else tonight. It was Trey. The bench for the Jazz in that second quarter obviously made a big difference. But it was a good night there by Trey that kept that made it very impressive.
Pretty good night by Andrew Wiggins, 20 points, and held Gordon Hayward to 4-13 shooting.
Are you going to say he held Gordon?
He guarded him most of the night.
That's going a little bit too far.
He guarded him most of the night. More often than not, if a rookie's guarding someone, he gets torched. Gordon scored one of his buckets on Levine. The minute they switched him, Gordon went right at Levine. They started running switches to get Wiggins off of Gordon.
Gordon played 35 minutes tonight.
Yeah. Andrew Wiggins played 36. Have a good night.